Did Mr. Trump's words make sense in China? Actually, yes. Vincent Ni is with the BBC's Chinese service.
Rocket Man in Chinese language called 火箭男. It's a literal translation. And interestingly, I think, Mr. Trump probably has very good speechwriters that basically fits the Chinese language translation perfectly well. They don't have to find a way to make it a more kind of subtle, etc. I mean, they just translate it literally straight away.
But China already has a nickname for Kim Jong-un.
Kim the Fat.
In case you missed it, that's Kim the Fat, or Jin San Pang.
You wouldn't see that in newspapers like People's Daily or state broadcasters like CCTV. But on the Chinese internet, there's a very vibrant space in terms of the language they use, in terms of the way they express themselves.
So it depends what media you're paying attention to in China. Elsewhere, Ji Lee is US correspondent for BBC Korea. She says her audience know exactly what Rocket Man means.
In Korean, rocket is also a rocket, or rocket as we say it, and man is just something that you put in next to, like Superman or Ultraman. So they just refer to it as Rocket Man.
But she adds that some other language Mr. Trump's used in his tweets have posed challenges for other South Korean journalists.
President Trump tweeted, "I spoke with President Moon of South Korea last night, asked him how Rocket Man is doing." He also wrote, "Long gas lines forming in North Korea, too bad." And a lot of South Korean media misinterpreted the gas lines at a gas station into a pipeline. That caused a huge misunderstanding, and the South Korean presidential office actually called an emergency press briefing to explain that does not equal pipeline, and asked some 10 media outlets to provide correction to their audience.
What about another nuclear power? Pakistan, for example.
I'm Abdul Wahab Rafiq. I work for the Urdu service.
Abdul was covering Mr. Trump's speech for the BBC's Urdu service.
We use the word Rocket Man as it is, but I did not use it in the headline.
Abdul says that context is key. Some things just don't translate in a literal way.
Rocket Man in Urdu. Rocket banane wala aadmi, a man who makes rocket. Like we say handyman. But that wouldn't have made the sense. The essence would have gone.
Finally, Russia. Editor Pavel Fedenko says he's not sure that many people got the Elton John reference.
They translated that more or less faithfully into Russian, which means a man who is also a rocket. Человек-ракета.
And he says Mr. Trump's speech was big news for the BBC's Russian service.
The remarks about North Korea seem to be the most salient there, so that's what we focused on.
But in Russia itself, state media gave it a rather different spin.
They discussed the speech at length, and this is even slightly puzzling because Trump barely mentioned Russia. He did have an oblique reference when he said that sovereignty needs to be defended everywhere, including Ukraine. They knew who he was talking about. But much of the commentary was about how little he said about Russia.
Mr. Trump's speech made headlines around the world. But what his words meant, on the other hand, really seemed to depend on where in the world you heard them.